Hi, I'm Kimberly, and welcome to As I've Seen It. There's a case that was settled in May by the U.S. Department of Justice. That would be Jeff Sessions' Department of Justice. And I don't think that case has gotten enough attention. Democrats in Congress are now asking questions about why that case was settled and the terms under which it was settled. But let me give you some background. All the way back in 2008, two guys working in Russia uncovered a massive tax fraud scheme. One of them was American-born businessman Bill Browder, who's a hedge fund dude, had a massive hedge fund in Russia. And the other was his tax attorney, Sergei Magnitsky. You may have heard that name associated with the Magnitsky Act. I'll get to that in a moment. So those two blew the whistle in Russia. Bill Browder went out of town on a business trip, went out of the country, out of Russia, and was never allowed back into Russia. Sergei Magnitsky was arrested. They accused him of tax evasion, the guy who blew the whistle on this massive tax fraud scheme. And when I say massive, I mean approximately $230 million worth of tax fraud. And these people turned out to be Russian mobsters, mid-level Russian officials, tax officials, all those types of people. $230 million basically stolen from the Russian treasury. So 2009, after he'd been in prison for approximately 11 months, Sergei Magnitsky was beaten to death. Of course, the Russian government for quite a while did not tell the truth about how he died, but the truth eventually came out in spite of them. Congress passed a bill in 2012, the Magnitsky Act. President Obama signed it into law. And the Magnitsky Act names names. It names people involved in imprisoning and killing Sergei Magnitsky, these mid-level Russian officials who all of a sudden had all this money. So what the act did was it seized their assets in the United States, it forbid them entry to the U.S., and it forbids them to work with U.S. banks. Putin was so angry about the Magnitsky Act that he forbid Americans to adopt Russian children. The Russian government actually held a trial for Sergei Magnitsky, the dead guy, in 2013 and found him guilty of tax evasion. There's this big Russian real estate company, Previzon, and Previzon may have laundered a lot of that money by buying condos in New York. Golly, who sells condos in New York? Who was selling a lot of condos in New York in 2008? So in 2014, Bill Browder takes his case and his evidence to the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Well, at that time, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York was Preet Bharara. I've talked about Preet in previous videos. Preet was this super bad prosecutor. Preet could take down just about anybody. So in 2014, he started building the case against Previzon. And these cases take a while, so it really wasn't scheduled to go to trial until May of this year, 2017. Well, on March 11th, Preet was fired. Donald Trump had promised Preet Bharara before the inauguration that he would not be fired when Donald replaced the Obama appointees. Donald fired Preet on March 11th. 10 days after Donald fired Preet, one of Preet's key witnesses, a lawyer in Moscow, Nikolai Gorokov, was pushed out of a fourth-story window. Nikolai survived, amazingly. And according to ABC News, Gorokov is lucky to be alive because 8 people associated with this tax fraud scheme in Russia are dead. Not only was Nikolai one of Preet's key witnesses, Nikolai had become the attorney for Sergei Magnitsky's family. They're trying to clear Sergei's name. And Nikolai had come up with this other evidence for the tax fraud thing, and he was ready to walk into court a few days later, but he got pushed out of a window. So Preet gets fired. Nikolai goes out the window. This all happened in March for a case that was supposed to go to trial in May. Days before the case was supposed to go to trial, the U.S. Justice Department under Jeff Sessions settled this case, and they settled it for chump change. $6 million. Sounds like a lot to the rest of us, but to Prevezon, that's nothing. And it's a fraction of what Preet was going to go after them for. The defense attorney for Prevezon said this deal was so good, there was no way they could turn it down. His clients don't have to admit guilt. Nobody's going to jail. As far as I know, their assets have not been seized, and they only had to pay $6 million. That would have just covered their attorney fees. That was nothing for them. So how did this happen? Because the other lawyer for Prevezon is Natalia Veselnitskaya. Yeah, her, the woman who met with Donald Jr., Jared Kushner, and Paul Manafort a year before. Last summer, one of the big attorneys who has been fighting the Magnitsky Act, in other words, fighting to let these people who stole money from the Russian government continue to launder their money in the U.S., that woman met with those three. And people have said, oh, this meeting was nothing, no one got anything out of it. Well, her case got settled for next to nothing. If Preet Bharara had tried that case, Preet would have won. He would have gotten a lot more money, people might have gone to jail, and assets would have been frozen. Veselnitskaya got something out of this meeting, I believe. So then the question becomes, what did the boys get out of this? Well, we know that Donald Jr. had been doing tons of business with the Russians because Jr. said so back in 2008. 2008. Russian money getting laundered. Jr. said they had tons of money coming into the business from Russia. One of the things that the press didn't pick up on from that interview was that he also said he and his sister Ivanka had been to Russia half a dozen times in the past year and a half. Jared Kushner, one of the people that Jared Kushner had done a massive business deal with, is part of Prevezon. He's one of the partners. And he didn't know that this woman was a lawyer for Prevezon. Paul Manafort has had dodgy, dirty money deals with Ukraine and Russia for a long time, at least with Ukraine, and with pro-Russian Ukrainians. They should have known who she was. They should have known what she wanted. They were definitely, better informed than they're telling us. Quid pro quo. What did the boys get? Thanks for watching.